welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be talking about shorts content. Now, short content is everywhere. YouTube, Instagram, TikTok as a whole is short content. However, there is a grouping of really crappy short content that is like pumped out like nobody's business. The acting is subpar, the effects are interesting, and you have to pay to watch them. However, these apps have an obsession with werewolves, mind you. Wow. But that is not what we're talking about today. We're talking about the vampire short content, because obviously that's what I came for. I downloaded the apps Real Short and Drama Box, both basically the same exact thing. The actors spread across these apps, making me think that they are all owned by one, person, or one company makes these shorts and then they just distribute it to all these apps. Each of these apps you can either pay or watch for free, but they really make you not want to watch for free. The ads are immense. Now, both Real Short and Drama Box had the ability where you could watch 10 episodes for free, but each episode you had to watch an ad. So you watch an ad, you watch a minute or two of content, and then you have to watch another ad to watch the next one. After that, they have some daily bonuses where you can check in to get some points, and then you can watch 7 to 10 ads and then get some more points to watch more episodes. If you want, you can pay $20 for a week trial or something, and then you can pay more money for a month, and I wasn't going to spend any money in these apps. I refuse. So I watched so many ads. Some of the ads were 15 seconds, so they were annoying but manageable. Other times they were close to 60 seconds, and it was just bothersome. But today I am focusing on the vampire content that I found on these apps. I saw a few of them on YouTube. People had uploaded clips, but not the entirety of these short movies. So I decided to download these apps so I could give it a try myself. Now, each of these movies are usually between about 50 and 75 episodes, each episode being between 1 and 3 minutes long, closer to 1 to 2 minutes long, usually. You usually have to watch an ad in between each episode. Now, if you add up all the episodes, these shows are about a movie length long, 60 minutes to an hour and a half, depending, obviously, how long the clips are. So they're basically a movie split into 60 parts that you have to watch ads to consume. Now, if you're really into it, you kind of get over the ads, and I wanted to know how these shows went, so I did deal with the ads. Was it worth it? The time I have lost, probably never going to get back. But today I'm going to be talking about 6 of these short dramas, and I'm going to be rating them in 3 categories: acting, story, and how much vampire stuff was actually in it. Because some of these like to say there's vampires, and the vampires are in this much of the show. So, let's get into it. So I have 3 shorts from Drama Box and 3 shorts from Real Short. I'm going to start with the Drama Box shorts first. The first one is Blood Contract. The basic idea of this is that this girl works for this man's company and she's kind of tight on cash. And so he's like, hey, why don't you just be my wife? It'll be a contract marriage, no love involved, and I'll pay you. Right? But she has to move into his house, which was not discussed beforehand. So she moves in and eventually discovers that the house is crawling with vampires and that he is also a vampire. And so she, it goes back and forth between her just, saying, screw it, let's marry this guy, to, oh my god, I need to get out of here right now. And the people in the house don't really like her very much. There is a family business that the father owns that the main man and his brother are fighting over. So the brother and his woman are trying to get rid of her so that they can get the position. And drama ensues, things go back and forth. In the end, the couple do end up together. They do fall in love with one another, and this contract becomes real. He does become the head of the company, and the brother just crawls into a hole because he finds out that his girlfriend killed his dad, which is a dramatic thing that happens near the end of this show. The acting was horrid. The main man of the show had no emotion whatsoever. He was very monotone the entire time. He showed some bits of emotion, but it was rare. The main girl, clearly her first language was not English, as far as I could tell. Her acting was also bad. The only one who was kind of okay was the brother. He had moments of being like, okay, this is good, and other moments being like, oh my god, what are you saying? Overall, I would rate the acting a 4 out of 10. It wasn't the worst thing I've ever seen, but it wasn't good. The storyline is a 2 out of 10. Now, I rated this so low because it, the way I described it makes sense. However, they just kept putting things in there that didn't need to be in there. Like, randomly, she got hit in the head and knocked out, and they thought she was dead. Like, slapped her a few times, hit her behind a desk, like, oh my god, wasn't dead, woke up like she was, like, nothing happened. She's part werewolf, but they never touch on it again. They just say, like, your ancestor was a werewolf. And I think her ancestor was also a vampire hunter, so they were just kind of, like, mixing everything together. The ending, like, fizzled out. The ending did not have a climactic ending. It did not have, like, a, wow! It was just kind of like a, oh, okay. And it just, the story could have gone well if they did it better. Because during this blood contract marriage, he also wanted to do a ritual with her where he had to drink her blood, which he didn't bring up until later, obviously once they were already in their contract, to, like, save his father or something like that. But they never really touched on it again, and, like, it was bad. Vampire-wise, I would say a 3 out of 10. There was one bite in the entire show. I believe there was 50, 60 some episodes. One bite that happened within 5 milliseconds and then ended. There was no angst, no, like, where you wanted to, like, one of the vampires to win or lose. Like, you didn't care. The thing is that I didn't care. None of the characters made me feel anything. So it was just meh. The next one is Date with a Vampire. This one starts out with the vampire, Vigo, going on a dating app and meeting this girl who he berates because she is not skinny, which was definitely not needed. Then he takes her blood. He doesn't bite people usually. He, like, drains their blood into vials and then drinks it. And he left her out in the woods. Then he runs into his reincarnated lover from 500 years ago. But he doesn't, like, push it, He's like, oh my god, how are you doing? And she can't stop thinking about him. But she has a man already who just sucks. And he's very abusive mentally and physically. And he cheats on her with a guy in her bed. He hates Vigo because he wants the girl. And he is also a vampire who was there 500 years ago. And she chose Vigo the first time and will choose him again. So there's a back and forth between Vigo and Marcus. Basically, I want her, no, I want her. And she eventually chooses Vigo. Marcus goes to Vigo and tries to kill him. And she steps in and saves his life, actually offering her blood to him to save him. Marcus takes her back and, is like, he's evil, blah, 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 tells her the story that is not true. But it is revealed that a ritual must happen, I believe, on the blood moon. There's 2 amulets, and whoever have the 2 amulets of the 3 will live, and the other one will die. However, they have to be in love. So Marcus thinks that if him and her have these amulets, then they will live. And he decides to try and do this ritual, and it fails because he wants to possess her, not love her. It's not true love. Vigo and her, it's real, supposedly. Specifically because Marcus did turn the girl against her will, near the end of the show, which I think was very unnecessary. She didn't have to become a vampire, but whatever. He died. Vigo and her lived happily ever after. The acting was a 2 out of 10. It was clearly obvious that basically everyone in the show's first language was not English, or they just had thick accents. Their acting was bad. Marcus just made me angry the whole time because he was just very, abusive. And he was just bad, and I hated him, and so much. And even Vigo, who was supposed to be the one you were supposed to, like, root for, they started the show out with him fat-shaming someone, so why am I gonna like him either? Like, he's a horrible human vampire, too, and I guess the girl was okay. I mean, she didn't really do anything that was like, ugh. But just the acting overall was just not good. Story-wise, I would rate it a 4 out of 10. There was a clear progression of kind of what was going on, but there was also things mixed in that didn't really need to happen. I feel like it could have used some flashback scenes. I think that might have helped with their reincarnated lover story they were trying to, go along with. I got what they were going for. It just didn't land like it was supposed to. Vampire-wise, I would say a 6 out of 10. There was only one bite that actually was like, okay, that was good. And then there was the scene where she got turned against her will, and there was fang shots and stuff, and him draining vials of blood out of women. So there was vampire-y type stuff happening, but it just wasn't good. Then there's Your Bride is a Hunter, My Vampire Lord. In this, a vampire lord asks for a human bride every 100 years with a certain tattoo, because 500 years ago, he was staked in the chest by a vampire hunter, and his chest, like, absorbed the stake. And he talked to a psychic, and the psychic told him that a girl with this type of tattoo would be able to pull the stake out of him and save him. So he's been every 100 years asking for a new bride, and the hunters knew this. So they snuck in a girl who they faked the tattoo for to be his bride. She was a hunter. Her goal was to kill him, but of course they grow close, and she realizes she can't do it. She even gives him a potion to make him act like a child, like to make it easier to kill him, but they have like a really special day with one another, and she just realizes that she can't. And he grants wishes to humans. He takes some of their blood with magic, and grants them a wish. So, like, they want money, or they want this, or they want that. And she realizes that, yes, he is taking from these people, but they are choosing to come to him. And anyone who has died from blood loss is because they kept coming back to him. He doesn't take enough each time to kill them. They would have to come back repeatedly. And so she realizes that he's not as evil as the hunters made him out to be. And so the hunters kind of find out that, oh, she's not doing what she's supposed to, and they get a little angry. And the leader of the vampires, it is revealed, is the man who originally staked the vampire, and has been living this long to exact revenge because his woman, his girl, got attacked by vampires. And so he's exacting revenge on the man who did it, even though it's revealed in like the last episode that it wasn't him, it was his butler who had killed the main hunter's girlfriend. But the main hunter is about to kill the vampire when she stops him, and she's able to pull the stake out of the vampire's chest, and they live happily ever after. The acting was probably a 6 out of 10. The acting was probably the best out of the 3 in this one. It had moments of being bad, but the actors were not the worst I had seen. The main actress and actor did a pretty good job with the script they were given. I think a lot of issues that these shorts have is the script is bad, not just their acting. However, I think they did a pretty good job. Not all the actors in the show were good, but some of them were, and some of them really, gave the point across, and actually I was like waiting to see what happened next. Story-wise, I would rate it a 7 out of 10. There was a clear progression of events. I knew exactly what was happening, and it was a good story. It was an interesting story. Though the acting was not 10 out of 10, I was invested, and I wanted to know what was going to happen next. And I actually thought there was chemistry between the main actor and actress, which with a lot of these, there isn't. But with this one, I actually felt it, and I was like, all right, what's going to happen? Vampire-wise, I'd probably rate it a 6 out of 10. There was no bite scenes at all, a lot of fang shots, a lot of vampire lore, and moments where, the vampire was upset and had angsty vampire moments, but no, full-blown vampire attacks, if you will. But overall, this was probably my favorite of the 3 on Drama Box. Now to Real Short. The first series that I watched on Real Short was My Mate is a Vampire. The basic story of this is that a werewolf girl, whose wolf has not awakened yet, and a lot of these, they have lore that mixes between the different series. Most of the time, their wolf awakens at 18, but there's a few late bloomers. This girl's wolf just never awoke. She just didn't have one. And so, she is taken in by this werewolf guy because I believe her dad owed someone. And a vampire is sneaking in to try and take something from him and finds her. And he takes her back to his house. And they find out that they are mated to one another, which is not supposed to happen. Werewolves and vampires are not supposed to mate. That is weird. And so he tries to hide her. It doesn't really work. So he claims to his family that she is his blood servant, you know, and he's forced to like take a small bite of her in front of, I believe his brother's girlfriend, something like that, in front of family basically to prove this, and he loses control a little bit, and that angst was nice. And then his brother comes in and realizes that she is different, like can sense that she is not human, that something's off here, and attacks her, and they even like tie her up and everything, and it's revealed that her blood can allow them to walk in the sun. You know, eventually they escape and hide, but Talon, the guy, goes back and is tied up and covered in silver chains and tortured basically, and she comes to the rescue, feeds him to heal him, and saves him. And it goes back and forth with saving and getting kidnapped, and it just goes. And then that werewolf guy from the beginning comes back, and I believe kidnaps her again. It's a lot of kidnapping. But it is revealed after the one time that they were together that she is pregnant. That is actually a theme that happens a lot in these, I've noticed. Okay, and she has in her stomach the first vampire werewolf hybrid baby, and Talon has to break his bond to gain strength to bring her back, but then at the very end the bond is renewed, brought back, and they live happily ever after. The acting was maybe a 3 out of 10. The main actress was not bad, but the main actor was. He had his angsty moments, which I did appreciate, but a lot of the main acting serious moments were just not, they didn't land like they should have. The rest of the cast was okay. Everyone in this show was okay. Story-wise, 2 out of 10. It was all over the place. Like the main point was that they were a vampire and werewolf bonded pair, and that's not supposed to happen, and they had a hybrid baby. But it just didn't, it felt weird, and there was a lot of kidnapping and storylines that just like they tried to mix in there that didn't really work, and it just felt weird. Vampire content, I'd rate it a 6 out of 10. There were 2 different moments with a vampire bite in it. There was a little bit of vampire angst in there. Vampires were a big part of the story. I just wish there was more vampire angst. Angst is my favorite. It needed more angst. The next one is Love Me, Bite Me, which is another reincarnated lover storyline. This girl works at a bar, and they're doing like a Christmas event, and she goes outside and sees something she shouldn't, and a vampire bites her. This man goes out, saves her, but he kind of has, the vampire who attacked her now has a grudge. The vampire that saved her, like, takes her back to his house and protects her from this vampire who eventually comes back and attacks her again, but he kills him. The problem is that his father is pretty high up in the vampire chain against this group. They're trying to do a peace treaty, and this kind of messes with everything. This father now wants revenge. He kidnaps her, chains her up, plans to light her on fire. The vampire comes to the rescue, but gets hurt. She feeds him her blood to save him, and they live happily ever after. Now, the reincarnated lover story is basically he has loved her for hundreds of years, but every time that they get together, she is killed in a different way. The one thing that this one has that the other one didn't is this one has flashbacks to her past lives, which I did appreciate because the other one I think could have used flashbacks. I think that would have been nice. This one actually had those. And it's revealed that the vampire that originally attacked her, his dad, the one that wanted revenge, has been killing her every single time. He's the one who originally killed the original girl, and every time she reincarnates, he kills her. Just to be an ass, I guess. I don't know. Acting-wise, 4 out of 10. Some of the acting was good, some of it was not. The main actress wasn't too bad, but the main actor was. I've noticed that's a trend. And the others were just not good. There was a few like moments where I was like, oh, that was really good acting. And then there was a lot of moments where I was like, what? Story-wise, 8 out of 10. It actually made sense. The story made sense. The script was not the greatest, but it made sense. I mean, from point A to point B, everything fit together pretty well. The biggest downside to this was the acting, but the story overall I liked. Vampire-wise, I'd say it was a 5 out of 10. There were 3 moments where bites happened. 2 of them by the evil vampire, 1 of them by the main vampire love interest. But it it wasn't that great. Vampire stuff was talked about, but there wasn't a lot of fang shots, there wasn't a lot of vampire hissing, and not as much angst as I would have liked. The final short series that I watched on Real Short was Fated to My Forbidden Vampire. There's this girl who has been a slave to a vampire family since she was 8 years old. When they took her in, she cleans, she cooks, she does whatever they need. But if she misbehaves, she gets put in the basement, she gets tortured, she gets treated like absolute garbage. So she is this slave to this family and just treated like absolute crap. But they are having like a convenience of all the vampire families, and so she is making them food. And the main vampire girl of the family just treats her like absolute garbage. She's got this magic power that she likes to use against this girl to hurt her, to the point that that this girl thinks the only way out is to hurt herself, which she is stopped by the beautiful Theo, who is the main vampire love interest. He's actually a kind vampire, not a stuck-up dillweed like the other ones. He stops her from hurting herself, actually giving her a potion to help heal her wounds. However, the main vampire mean girl of the family is in love with him and sees this type of connection and gets even more pissy. So she sneaks into Theo's room one night and actually, like, poisons him. Like, roofies him and is trying to take advantage. And the the servant walks in and catches them and stops her in her tracks and kicks the vampire meanie out. However, because he is all loopy, he attacks her and bites the servant. And because he bites her, they form a blood oath. And in this show, a blood oath means that he has to bite her every single day or he will die. And it's a death oath, so if he dies, she dies. What a lovely turn of events. So, some more drama ensues, but eventually Theo takes the girl to his home because obviously he needs to feed on her every day, and she lives with him. And they grow closer and, you know, have a connection. However, he is distant because when he was 8 years old, he was saved by a girl who he can't stop thinking about. She had a certain necklace, right? But this servant did not have that necklace, and so he's trying to hold out for this girl, even though he's happy with the servant. It is revealed that this servant was the girl with the necklace. However, the vampire meanie took the necklace, and that's why she is magic. The servant is a witch, and she didn't know this. But the vampire stole this necklace and claimed her witch powers for herself. So in the end, the vampire meanie loses. I believe their bond is broken, but maybe it isn't. But she gets to have her witch powers, and she gets married to Theo. Acting-wise, I'd say it was a 6 out of 10. Some of the actors were really good. The main actress I really enjoyed, and the main actor was really good. The rest of the cast had their moments of being good, and then they were kind of not. The main actor actually does a lot of shorts content. His name is Nick. I've actually seen a few other ones that weren't vampire related because a lot of people said he does werewolf content, so I had to watch that. He's overall the best actor in that show. Not saying he's a 10 out of 10, the best actor you have ever seen, but he's pretty good. Story-wise, I'd actually give it like a 8 out of 10. I really liked the story. There was a point A to point B. A lot of these have like weird angles where things don't make sense. This one made sense. The story made sense. And I actually really liked the idea of this blood oath that they had between them. They didn't show as much of it as I would have liked, but I actually liked that aspect. And finally, vampires, probably a 7 out of 10. There was the original attack where the blood oath, blood bond, whatever, was formed, and then there was maybe 1 or 2 other scenes where he bit her, but they weren't very long or like angsty, but they were there. A lot of these shows have 1 bite and that is it. Sometimes they have 2 or 3, but they're not that good. You know, these are hour-and-a-half long things. You'd think they'd have more vampire content. To conclude, these shows are not the worst thing I have ever seen. They're the type of content where it's like kind of bad, but not bad enough where you can't stop watching. Kind of like you need to know what happens next. You know, the acting in a lot of these is subpar. The stories are subpar. They got soap opera stories where suddenly this happens, and this, then that. I just wish that they had more vampire content, like more vampires at the forefront, more angst, more, because vampires are in it, but they're not at the forefront like they should be. These are only a couple of the shorts that I saw on these apps. I actually am working on a part 2 already. I have 5 more of these that I already have written down to watch. So stay tuned for part 2 whenever that happens. These apps, I would say, are not worth it. The content is subpar. If you don't want to pay money and you're okay with ads, then it's fine. But if you're not okay with ads, don't pay money for these. I would never pay money for any of these. But I'm fine with watching ads here and there, so if I have to, I have to. If you're gonna, I would say Drama Box is probably the best when it comes to ads wise, because usually they give you 10 episodes a day, an ad per episode, and then you can watch, with the other ads, you can watch about 7 or 8 more episodes. And Real Short is very similar, so they're both, in that respect, have it, but Real Short has less ads after those 10 episodes that you can watch to get more coins. If you want to pay money for these, you could pay $20 and then get the entire app for free and just watch everything if you wanted, but I didn't want to spend money. These apps are definitely a waste of time. I thought it was interesting, but now I watched it so you don't have to. If you have any other shorts apps and short content that's vampire related that you have seen that you would recommend, comment down below. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'll be back again next week with another one. Alright guys, see you later.